Hi there team, today we're talking about our feedback app. Here we are in our management workspace. Our feedback or complaints is an application we use to document, manage any feedback that we receive from whether it be customers or even other team members. So receiving feedback is going to happen, but it's not about the fact that we've got feedback, it's about how we handle that feedback that really counts. So when we're working with our feedback app, it's quite simple. We can create a feedback app or item rather, right here in the app itself. There is also an online form which is designed to be accessible by the administration team, because oftentimes they're the ones receiving the feedback. If they receive email, message or phone message or face-to-face feedback, they can create the feedback item using the online form, and it will populate here because this is the management area or management workspace, so admin is generally not going to have access to this this application. So we have our titled feedback, which we're just testing today. Feedback relates to a range of different items. We can link this to the client, so we can it's important that we take the time to link this to our clients, because when we link this here, it will stay attached to the family item. So over time, we'll see a history of communication and different sorts of items that family gets linked to within Podio, so it's quite good. The name of the feedback, this is where we can actually enter the contact information if we don't have a link to the client up here. The date and time received, it's pretty straightforward. And here we can actually log this against a team member. So as our team member application is populated, all team members will be logged here. If it is against a team member or members, again, once we relate that there, it actually will stay linked to their team member item, and so you'll again get to see some history over time. Received through, etc. How did we receive this this feedback? Our current demeanor. So we're talking here about, well, how much anxiety is being expressed by the customer. Oftentimes, it's good to know just how the customer is feeling right now. It really does help the person who is set next to talk with them, just to know what they're coming up against. We always want to know who actually received the feedback, so that if needs be, as a manager, we can go to that person and just get some further clarifications, etc. Here, if it's decided that we do need some input by maybe someone else in a different facility, or maybe someone further up the line, we can actually tag them here, and they'll be brought into this feedback item as well. And of course, we've just got our details of the feedback. Our initial response. So we want to make sure that once feedback is received, we get an initial response back to that customer or that person as soon as possible. It doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be an answer, but we just want to make sure that the customer realizes, or that the person who gave the feedback realizes that we have heard their feedback and we are now investigating and working on that. Our checklist, which would populate automatically as such, would start with feedback received. We'll save this feedback as an item, so now it's become active. At this point, you might, if you're the person creating feedback, you might ask for someone to become involved in this. It might be some feedback against a particular administrator, perhaps. So you might actually tag one of the admin team to come in here and give some comments about this and get their side of what may have happened, etc., etc. So you can share the item that way. A little checklist as we work through. So initial response provided, further action required. Sometimes we can have this all sorted in this these first two steps right here, and then we can right down the bottom, we can go to archive or complete. Further action required, perhaps. If we want our management level or director level to be involved, then we can upgrade it through this area here, etc. There is a hidden field area through here. So we'll get to a point perhaps that this particular feedback is going to require a little bit more work. We've got further action required. This keeps everyone involved with the feedback that we are still actually working on this. We could go to no further action and resolved. But let's say we need a little bit of management involvement here, or maybe the owners of the business involvement here, etc. What we can do in this instance is if you can consider what we've done so far to be stage 1 of the feedback, we can upgrade this to stage 2. Now, when we do so, we're probably saying or indicating that there's going to need to be a meeting held regarding this. And if you have a look at this little icon right here, this shows hidden fields. If we click on that, we open up another couple of areas. In this instance, we're going to potentially assign this feedback to someone else for the second stage as such. We're also going to potentially create a meeting. And this, when we create a meeting here, it's going to create a meeting through our meetings app, and so that will be handled outside of this feedback item, but it will be linked here. And then once we've had our meeting, we'll come back and I guess have some determination about what we need to do to move forward. A little checklist here of stage 2, meeting required, as we've been talking about, and right through to, again, potentially resolving the actual feedback. No further action. An important one here is the feedback. If feedback is customer based, did they leave the program as a result? Yes or no, they are continuing. No, but they're having a break. And our ending demeanor. I mean, obviously we want to try and get our ending demeanor back down nice and low, that the customer is relatively happy with the outcome. Okay. Now, feedback is not all about just fixing it and moving on. Sometimes we're going to have feedback where we'll actually need to keep tracking the issue. So certainly, just if we've got a feedback item that fits into that category, we classify it here in the status, and we can assign that to a team member for them to actually follow up with the customer. And there is actually tasking down here to follow up with that customer down the track, just to ensure that, yep, everything is fine and we're all moving forward and everyone's happy. So that's our feedback app, a series of checklists, but also while utilizing Podio functionality, when we can bring people in here and get feedback and comments from other people related to the feedback, you'll find it's a very, very powerful way to deal with feedback, and with the goal of turning that customer who might be a little bit unhappy into a happy customer.